This is the Illimitable Experience podcast. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Illimitable Experience podcast. If you're watching this video, like this video, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel, do subscribe to the channel. We are posting great content regularly. With that, today we have as our guest Bhavin Jawade. Hi Bhavin, how are you?
Hi, Manan. I'm good. Hi, Dev. How are you
Uh,
guys?
we are doing pretty well. Bhavin, it is a pleasure to have you today. I was looking forward to record an episode with a person who is dealing with artificial intelligence for a long time. And today we are finally doing this.
Yeah, I'm excited to have this conversation. Yeah,
Yeah. So, Bhavin, for those who will be listening to this podcast, uh, can you tell us who you are and what you do?
yeah, sure. So, currently I'm a PhD student at University at Buffalo, and my area of research is in artificial intelligence and like particularly in deep learning and computer vision. And what I'm focusing on right now is on the interaction of visual and the language world, because I believe that's a uh, that's a paradigm, that the intersection of these two modalities where which could give us a great improvement in our understanding of artificial intelligence and the improvement in either of these modalities. So
Mm.
that's what I'm trying to focus on, that can we improve how computers perceive images, how they perceive videos by using language, and can we improve the understanding of language of computers by using the visual data. So this interaction of two modalities, that's what I'm focusing on.
Right. And you say you have been working on this PhD for probably 1.5 year. Can you tell us where
Yeah,
have you worked with, what projects have you worked so far?
yeah, sure. So as a PhD student, I'm currently working as a research assistant in my lab in the University at Buffalo. It's the name of the lab is CUBS Lab, Center for Unified Biometrics and Sensors. And apart from that, I've just recently started my research scientist internship at Adobe, and there again I'm working on a similar domain of vision and language.
Mhm.
Uh, yeah, so that's the kind of work experience that I'm having right now. Yeah.
Okay, great. Now, Bhavin, why the reason why I wanted to invite someone with a with an understanding in this niche is because see, it is something that is the future, artificial intelligence and machine learning, right? And I've been reading not a lot but a little bit of idea here and there about the topic, but I'll get to know more from you, in detail about this topic. So what exactly is artificial intelligence, and it was around which year or which decade when this industry started to, was this industry born?
Yeah. So artificial intelligence, like people have been debating about this topic of intelligence and how to define intelligence, like since decades, right? Since thousands of years, I guess. But in particularly in computer science, this topic I think began around the time of Alan Turing, because Alan Turing was the guy who first of all made this idea of digital computers that we see around us, right? You must have seen that movie Imitation Game, right? Benedict Cumberbatch.
Imitation. No, I
Yeah,
haven't watched it, but I'm aware of the movie.
yeah. So it's on life of Alan Turing, like the Nobel Prize of Computer Science. It's called Turing Award. It was named after him. So Alan Turing had this concept of Turing test. The Turing test helps you decide whether the person you are talking to, is it intelligent or is it not? So is it a human or is it an AI? So that it has a set of questions that you can ask a person to evaluate whether the person is alive or not. So that's, I think that was the what we can call a beginning of this domain of AI, though there could be instances of people talking about AI way before that.
Mm.
And since then there has been a lot of winters and springs of AI. So what I mean by winters and spring is that, um, so as you know, so let's say I'm working in a domain. So I need funding to do research in that domain, right? And that funding comes
mm,
from government, private organizations, people, investors, right? And a lot of people. So uh, there has been AI winters where people lost their interest in AI. They thought that AI is not working out, and that cut off, and people started to cut off their fundings, right? So that's the AI winters, and we had several AI winters in spring in last 30-40 years. And but every time such a AI winter or spring came in, people just kept on doing, the researchers at least kept on doing what they were doing, but just they changed the name of the game, right? So
mm,
instead of calling it AI, they started calling it pattern recognition. They started calling it statistical machine learning. uh, but this big revolution that we talk about in AI, so everything that you see, the face recognition in your iPhone, and the chatbots that you're talking to, and like a lot of this current renewed interest in AI, and this talk about deep learning, everything I think began with 2010 2012 with his challenge. So the name of the challenge is ImageNet Recognition Challenge. Uh, ISLVRC, something like that. So the full name
mm,
is something like that. So it is basically, you have around a million, 21 millions around images, and you have 1,000 classes, or I think more classes. I could be wrong. You can fact check me on that. So you
mm,
have a million images, you have thousands of classes, and you have to create an AI system, a deep learning based system, which can, given an image, tell you which class it belongs to. So given an image, is it a cat? Is it a dog? Given an image, is it a bus, or is it whatever class that image belongs to? You have to recognize that. And in 2012 there was a team. So the team had this paper called LXNet. They had this architecture called LXNet, and this LXNet in 2012 gave a big significant boost in this recognition performance, the accuracy of the accuracy that you get in recognizing uh, which class this image belongs to, right? And that I think began this new era of deep learning, because primarily what this LXNet showed you, this AI system showed you, was that given, first of all, a large amount of data, people had
mm,
not seen this scale of data as we had in ImageNet challenge before this challenge began. And second thing, the compute resources that are available to you. So now we see GPUs that we have in our gaming computers, right? And then we have specialized GPU for deep learning and related stuff. So GPUs, graphic processing units, are really good at performing vector computation, tensor computations. And with this combined effect of large amount of data and GPUs, deep learning architectures or convolutional neural networks, we can talk about it later. So these networks, which have not shown promising results in the past, when they were given this large amount of data and good compute, they started to show exceptional performance. And that just
mm.
began this cascading effect. And now we are seeing everything happening in deep learning.
Right.
Yeah. So like
Okay.
that is a brief of the whole history of AI in just 5 minutes. We can think about
So,
it. So,
Bhavin, you told, okay, uh, when you're talking to the machine or you're talking to intelligence, you get to know, what it is.
yeah.
In the humans, the matrix of intelligence has been measured in terms of IQ. Okay.
Yeah.
And or if you look back, if you look at a more primitive ways, it is the survival of the fittest, to put it plainly. So what
Okay.
is the matrix of intelligence that defines the artificial intelligence?
Like now what is intelligence is a very debatable question, right? Because people even in humans, like people who are having lower IQ score, we can't call them intelligent, because okay, in humans, the what we call intelligence is relative, right? I might be
Hmm,
really not as intelligent as you are, or as Einstein was. So we call that a person is dumb, is not intelligent. But
hmm,
in terms of AI, even being able to correctly classify an image
hmm,
is close to moving towards some level of intelligence, right? But what we are
Okay.
targeting here is AGI, artificial general intelligence. So given an AI model which could perform every other task just like a human, or at least at a performance as human can.
Hmm.
So like that's the domain of artificial general intelligence. And uh yeah, so therefore that's the case, right?
Hmm.
Being able to tell what intelligence is, or when
Hmm.
a system has become intelligent, is very difficult.
Hmm.
And so you must have seen this recent
Cap
news, right?
capture.
uh, uh, the captcha so uh, captcha is not about exactly AI. Captcha is just image classification task, right? Yeah,
Okay.
captcha just tries to see if a person is a robot or not. But
Hmm.
it's basically that current systems are not very capable in
Hmm.
deciding. Still, they are not very good at deciding whether this is a zebra crossing or not, right?
Yeah,
Or
yeah, yeah, exactly. So yeah,
right,
that was something that I wanted to point out, because there are always these images, like in some blogs, it is evident that ये, a zebra crossing है या truck है, and there is
right.
one blog, just a tiny little part of that, images
Yeah,
is just residing coming in. So that is
right.
something, and so it's all about recognizing how what the pattern is of something, that is basically artificial intelligence.
Um, okay, so
Because you said there is artificial general intelligence, which you said is
yeah,
like pointing out the, so that's the general part of it,
right.
right?
So in even in terms of artificial intelligence, the wha- when we can say that a system has become artificial intelligence is a very it's a very difficult question to answer. But
Mm,
within that, there we have subdomains like machine learning and deep learning, and it's easier to define these sub niche subdomains concretely than to define what intelligence is, right? So uh, for example, you must have heard about machine learning, right? So what is
mm,
machine learning primarily? If someone asks you, then the definition there is primitive, is comparative simple. So it's like, if you are given a task T, everyone like who is taught a machine learning course is taught this in the first lecture, right? So it's like,
okay.
if you have a task T, let's say I
Mm,
have a task, let's say image classification or something, and I have a capability and I try to perform that task. After performing that task, I get a performance, let's say P. I was
mm,
30% good in it, something like that. And now after trying to do that task, I get some experience, right? And let's call that experience E. So by using this experience E, if I now go about performing a similar task on new data set or new data, am I getting a little better performance? And that's machine learning, that you are trying to continuously learn from the data to improve your
mhm.
performance on that domain, on that particular uh, distribution, right?
Okay.
So that's the domain of machine learning. But
Mm,
what would be intelligence is a very difficult question to answer in my terms. I
mm.
would
Okay. Because I asked this question, reason being that I thought that the intelligence of a AI would be how strongly coded it is. That would be the intelligence. The more strongly coded it is, the better intelligent it is. Like more intelligent it is, and the more loosely coded it is, the less intelligent it is.
um, okay. So here here comes the part, right? Uh, the modern AI systems that we are seeing right now, they are not they are not fully coded by us. So like what I mean to say is that we do code the system to learn, but the
Hmm.
system learns from their data, right?
Oh,
So
okay.
right. So it's like more amount of data you give to that same system, it will keep on improving its performance. The newer data you give, the more cleaner data you give, it will improve your performance. So think about it this way, right? Um, do you know OpenAI? It's a company that Elon Musk started. It's an artificial intelligence company, like one of the leading companies which we see today in AI. It's like DeepMind, Google Brain, Meta, and then
Oh,
we have
no,
OpenAI.
no. I'm not aware of these companies, but I can understand if you explain me in terms of YouTube, because YouTube is also a data company only.
Absolutely. So, like what I want to talk about is So Elon Musk has this company called OpenAI, and OpenAI recently released a computer vision model called Clip. It's a
Hmm.
contrastive pre-training strategy. So even at this model, when you look at it, the basic architecture of that model, it was available to us a year ago and even 2 years ago, right? Even I can say 3 or 4 years ago. 2017 is when Transformers were released. But it's primarily that this model was given a humongously large amount of data. It was given, I think, around 400 million or something images and
Hmm.
text to train on. And the more data you give, you start to observe more interesting properties, more generalization from that
Hmm.
model, from that AI
Hmm.
model, right?
Okay.
Uh,
And if
uh,
and just to build an extension of this, you when
yeah,
you say that the data is given like 21 million data is given images, so these images are like fed in one shot, or they are fed like in a sequence.
yeah. So then there's another thing. Actually, right now, because of the constraint limitations of the resources that we have, right, we can't
Hmm.
throw the whole data at once to the network to
Okay.
learn from, right?
Hmm.
So how do we do it? We chunk the data into smaller parts, and we call
Hmm.
these parts as batches, and we give the network a batch to learn from. So there's, let's say, we have a black box. Okay, that black box is our artificial neural network. That's the system that we are trying to train, right? You
Hmm.
will give it a small batch of data, and this network will try to make a prediction based on that data. So let's say you give it 10 images, it will give you 10 predictions, that the first image is of a dog, second image is of an airplane, third image is of a, let's say, a cat,
Hmm.
right? And it will have a probability score, it will have a confidence score for these predictions.
Okay.
It would be like, I'm 70% sure that it was an airplane, I'm just 25% sure that it's a cat, but the 25% is the highest confidence I have for any other class, for any class, right? For other
Okay.
classes, I have 3%, 1%, something around that. 25% is the
Hmm.
highest I'm confident about. So it has some confidence score. And we, as the people who gave it the data, we know the ground truth, right? We know that the first image was airplane, but we also know that the second image was not a cat, it was, let's say, a porcupine, right?
Hmm.
So we will penalize the network that, okay, you made the first prediction correct, but there was a 30%, you can make a 30% improvement. Second image was totally incorrect. So we'll penalize the network.
Hmm.
And based
Hmm.
on the penalty that we give to the network, it will try to adjust itself so that it makes a better prediction. So basically,
Hmm.
it extracts better features from this visual image
Hmm.
and summarize them into this class information, right? So that's how this learning take place. So yeah, to answer
Hmm.
your question, we don't put in all the data at once. We put it in batches, in chunks, and
Chunk.
we
Okay.
penalize the networks.
And what happens if the entire data is fed like in just one shot? Like let's take an example over here, right? I have a podcast channel, right? And somehow, since let's say since 4 years, I've been recording episodes. Okay,
Right,
let's take an example. And today I realized, it's time to start a channel, and I upload all the episodes that I've recorded in 4 years on my channel with like accuracy, SEO, and everything. So what will happen in such case? Like obviously, YouTube is a very huge thing. So for even 4,000 episodes won't be a big problem for YouTube to process. But in this case, where you are talking about 21 million images, if that is fed like in one shot, what happens?
so mm, it's our dream to pass all this data in one shot, but we can't do that because we don't have that much amount of storage memory in our GPUs, right? The best
Okay.
GPU, like, so if we talk about the Nvidia is a company, right, which makes one of these GPUs. So if we talk about Nvidia A100s, it has like 40 gigs or 80 gigs of memory, right? So you can't
Hmm.
put in all the data at once into these
Okay.
memories. You can't load all the
Okay.
data.
Hmm.
So you have to do it in chunks. And
Hmm.
apart from that, there is the benefit of batching, and people have observed that large batch sizes work better. But again, because of this hardware constraint, you can't put in all the data at once. Coming to your question, like, can we? uh, train on all the 400 videos that you have on your YouTube channel. So my question is like, what's the task? What we want the network to learn? What do we want the network to learn from the YouTube images that you have?
No, I don't understand your question. Can you like
So
reframe it?
right. So for example, the images that I talked about, we
Oh,
were asking the network to tell
uh,
us what is the crux, what is the salient object in that image, right?
correct,
So
correct. Huh.
in the airplane image, we were asking it to classify whether it's an airplane or not. It was
Hmm.
asking it to classify that among these 1,000 classes, which is the correct one, right? So
Correct,
that,
correct.
but in your YouTube video case, what is the task? What do you want the network to predict, or what do you want the network to learn?
It's to like when people watch the content, okay, I want the people to learn like nuances that have been talked in the episode, and then to subscribe to the channel like
So,
that.
but this is what you're expecting from the people, right? Not from the AI model, right? Itself.
But to reach people, I have used these SEOs, right?
Okay.
So it floats in
Right.
that direction.
Right. So I think what you're talking about is called recommendation engines, right? So
Acha.
uh, so recommendation engines. So what you mean is, like, you can correct me if I'm wrong. So what you want is based on the SEO tags, the search engine optimization keywords that you have provided, the people who are most relevant, people who have the most relevant interest to your domain should be recommended
Hmm.
your YouTube videos, right?
Hmm,
That's
hmm,
what you're.
hmm.
Yeah.
Correct.
So right. So yeah, deep learning has been used a lot in recommendation engines, but uh, providing these recommendations is not that much of a challenging task, though it's a very good avenue for research. But yeah, it's not as challenging as what uh, pure computer vision is, like
Hmm.
learn from the visual data that is around us,
Hmm,
right?
hmm.
As far as recommendation engines are concerned, people have techniques like, for example, collaborative filtering, right? So in short, collaborative filtering is something like this. You um how can I explain this? So you you have two users, right, on YouTube, and one of these users likes to watch, let's say, science videos, or let's say AI related, space related, astronomy related videos. And then there we have another person who also likes astronomy and science and similar domains, similar videos, who has
Hmm.
also watched very similar videos as the person one. So now, where we want to recommend person to something, we'll see what is something that person two watched and person one has not watched, and we'll recommend this
Oh.
thing from person one to person two. I'm like I'm trying to summarize this into really small amount of information, though
Hmm.
collaborative filtering is little more complex than this.
I
But yeah,
get it. Yeah. Yeah.
primarily be this. That's how they recommend.
Okay, okay. Now, Bhavin, you have used these words a lot in the in so far what you have recorded. Deep learning and
Yeah.
computer vision. So, are these the branches of artificial intelligence, or these are different topics altogether?
Um, Deep learning, you can definitely say that deep learning is part of artificial intelligence, right?
Hmm.
Computer vision now, in 2020, in this century, we can definitely say that computer vision is primarily artificial intelligence. But uh, if I want to be correct, I would say that computer vision is about in processing visual data, and you can process visual data using artificial intelligence or without using artificial intelligence. So what I mean by this is, consider image processing, right?
Hmm.
You have an image and you convert that image into black and white, right? That's image processing, and image processing is a subdomain of computer vision, right?
Okay.
uh, but primarily what computer vision is like is basically that computer should be able to understand visual data, right? And to process this large metrics of visual data, even if you look at an image is like 46, a good image from a new smartphone is like, I think, 4060 cross 2080, something like that in dimensions, right? It's a big image, it's a big grid of data. and you have thousands and thousands of images around the world, right? So how can you make the computer understand the the kind of objects we have around us, the kind of relationships we have around us, kind of interaction these objects have with other objects, just by looking at the images. So that's the domain of computer vision. So yeah, we can say that in this century both computer vision and deep learning are basically AI. Yeah.
Hmm, gotcha. Now, one of the examples that I got to know of machine learning, and which is, where my curiosity also peaked, was last year in the time of Diwali. Cadbury had made an ad with Shah Rukh Khan. And I don't know if Cadbury had exclusively told, okay, now you can use this ad for your own businesses as well. But people had started to, I mean, rightly so, they started believe. I mean, I not believe, I would say. I think machine learning was used to make this ad, because what would happen is, uh, if you want to promote your business, right? And there was just a little bit of changes that you had to make to the voiceover, and then it would appear like Shah Rukh Khan is promoting your own brand. So what do you think how that ad was, came into existence? Okay, the
Right.
which was applicable to everyone.
Right. So basically, what you're talking about is that can we, if I'm talking, can we take the voice, make my voice, or whatever I'm saying,
Hmm.
make it like Shah Rukh Khan is speaking that. So I am speaking, but the voice is of Shah Rukh Khan, right? Something like that.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. Yeah. So this is the new domain of what we can call as deep fakes, and not just deep fakes. It is it's like audiovisual synthesis basically.
Hmm.
So what we try to do is, given a video of, let's say, a person speaking, a famous personality speaking, right? We try to extract the audio information, and from that audio information we basically try to extract the idiosyncrasies of the person, the how that person speaks. And how do we extract that? Given a large amount of data of people speaking, right? A
Hmm.
large amount of data of people speaking, we try to extract this idiosyncrasies of people. And now, given a new person speaking, and a person whom we know about, like whose idiosyncrasies we have, we can transfer this idiosyncrasy of this person to this new video, right? And this is basically audio synthesis, audio synthesis. But in domains of deep fakes, so you must have seen deep fakes, like for example, uh, the very popular one was of Mark Zuckerberg saying something, and which he didn't actually say that,
Oh,
right?
yes, 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 yeah, 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 yeah. So I guess I remember the trend. The trend was the either TikTok or Instagram or Snapchat. Either of these three platforms had come up with an update where the lip movement would be inbuilt that way. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's the domain of deepfakes. So basically, you can create a video of a person saying something what you want to, and it would look like it's realistically very good. It looks very real, right? So that's the domain of deepfakes. And yeah, that's again avenue of computer vision. Though, like, even I have worked a little bit on deepfakes, but my area of experience in basically deepfakes is how can we detect that a video is a deepfake. So it's
Correct.
basically media forensics. So because if you get a video on your WhatsApp, right, how can you trust that the video was not created by a deep learning computer vision system and it was a real person speaking, right? And so many, like 125 crore people just in India and around the world, it's very difficult that it's like anyone can be fooled by it, right?
Hmm,
Even if
correct.
not the media, not the people in power, but the common man can easily be fooled by these altered videos, right? So the domain that I have been trying to work on is basically, given a video, a real video and a fake video, can we detect which one is real and which one is fake? And how we try to do that is, primarily we make the network learn the features which are very difficult for these deep fake videos to recreate. So in past, there were papers that showed that uh, for in your eyeballs, when we record a person speaking, there is a reflection in your eyeballs, right? This white
Hmm.
spots that we see.
Correct.
It was difficult for these deepfake videos to recreate these reflections correctly in both the eyes. So people have tried to use that information to detect whether video is deepfake or not. But it's a never-ending cycle, right? You will find a way to detect deepfakes, then then a new paper will come in that, oh, now we can create better deepfakes. So it's like lock picking, right? You create a better lock, you create
And
a better lock, someone will come and open it, and now you have to create now a new better lock, and someone come and open. So that's a never ending cycle.
right. Hmm. Correct.
Yeah.
Now, with this, like when you're talking about this, it seems really dangerous in the long run as to what will happen and how can these things be used by people of influence. Let's if somebody want like Papa specifically when it comes to winning elections, which is already something that people are talking about it at this stage of time as well. So yeah, it seems kind of dangerous as well, but obviously there's something that some things will come up to solve this problem. uh, Bhavin, now the next part would be if um, what is the difference between artificial intelligence and machine learning, like if you had to create table like we did in school, right? So what are the few basics that people should know कि अच्छा ये जो किया है वो artificial intelligence का product है and what is this is being done, this is the machine learning.
Right. So now the gap between artificial intelligence and machine learning is becoming narrower and narrower, right?
Hmm.
Because everything happening in artificial intelligence now is primarily machine learning and deep learning, and their subdomains like reinforcement learning and other stuff, right? So now, and probably in the coming decades, everything you can talk about artificial intelligence would be primarily deep learning and machine learning. But even in that case, if you want to differentiate, the best way would be to think of it as it's like a Venn diagram. Okay, so we have a
Hmm.
big circle. It's
Hmm.
the circle of AI, and in that we have a smaller circle of machine learning, and in that we have a
Hmm.
smaller circle of deep learning, and then we have intersections for natural language processing, computer vision, and reinforcement learning, and different other methods inside that, right? So because even the older systems, the hard coded systems, right, where people actually manually went and wrote rules in the sense that if the environment, if the environment showed you a let's say a vulture, then you should take a
Hmm.
left, you should run away from the vulture. When people were hard coding this information, even those systems, the early systems uh, were considered AI, and the newer systems which try to learn all this information given the data and letting the agent interact with the environment and learn to take optimized decisions, even these systems are considered AI, right? So I would say AI is a bigger circle in which a smaller subdomain is machine learning, but still, now and in the coming decades, everything that you see which is called in AI is primarily machine learning. Yeah.
Hmm. Right. And with in this example that you gave of, like if eagle is there, then you have to run away from it. So,
Yeah.
uh, what are the applications of this AI that is, that are being used or will be used in the coming years? Now, how I see it is, uh, see, there are, I'll talk from a organization's perspective, okay, because that is
Right.
easier for me to explain.
Mm.
Um, if an employee is doing a job, right, an X job, now there are two types of work that an employee is doing. One is the monotonous hard work, rigorous hard work, which does not require a lot of intelligence or focus to be done. The second is the creative part, or where you have to write something new or do something new which requires your focus. So it is that monotonous part that I'm talking about is something already,
Mm.
with a fixed input and a fixed result. So
Right.
that part is where AI can be used. Now, what are
Right.
the other parts where AI can be used, or it is being used, but we are not aware of it?
Right. Okay. So there's a very good example. This is a topic that people have been discussing for a long time. That AI is becoming good in expert systems, or expert domains, but it is not even as good as a human in the most obvious, most dumb, or most general domain, right? So what I mean by this is like, let's say language translation, right? So how many languages can I speak? I can just speak two languages, right? You might be able to speak three or four languages, right? And if I ask you to give a sentence, convert it to Spanish, it is very difficult for us. It's an expert
Mm,
domain, right? Or let's
mm,
talk about a game. Talk about chess. Chess is a
mm,
very difficult game to learn, right? Even
mm,
Go, the Chinese game Go, it's one of the most difficult games to learn. But
mm.
now AI systems have beat the world champions in both these games, right? In com
Oh,
in chess, I think it was the IBM Deep Blue, if I'm not wrong, which defeated the that time world champion Gary Kasparov. And then recently the AlphaGo was a AI system which defeated the current champion of Go, which is a Chinese game, right? So
okay.
these are expert domains, right? These are not the monotonous tasks we talk about, right? These are the
Okay.
focus
Mm,
expert domains that if I
right.
practice it, I will be good at it, right? Uh,
Mm, mm.
I need to be intelligent. But AI systems are beating people in these expert domains. They are performing really well. But then comes the obvious domain, right? Just telling whether this thing is a cat or not, whether this thing is a
Mm,
bird or not. And in many such tasks, AI systems are not even as good as humans are, right?
okay. Mm,
Then even if they get good in a very specific task of classifying dogs or cats, they won't generalize to other domains, right? So the system, yeah, the funny part here is that the monotonous thing that you talked about, AI systems are not good at it. But
oh.
sorry, what I mean to say is, sorry, yeah, monotonous things. So by monotonous things, I mean the most obvious things, which
Mm,
we do not even care about, right? We When you see an obstacle, you just take a left turn, right, or a right
correct.
turn. You avoid it. We
Mm,
do that subconsciously, right? Uh, all these very simple tasks that humans are really good at, AI systems are still not as good as humans, but they are trying to achieve that performance. And in the expert domain task, where we have very specific group of people who are extremely good at performing that task, AI
mm.
systems are becoming better and better. They are defeating humans in that. Even one of the very interesting projects in this domain is IBM's debater. So IBM basically created a AI system that can debate with you. So
Okay.
if you give it a
Oh,
topic,
uh, like it speaks like that.
yeah, it speaks. But the interesting part is like the arguments that it generates to debate with you, they're good, they are realistic, they are convincing, though they are still not as good to defeat a human, the best
Mm,
champion of debating on earth. They are not good at debating the world champions, competing with the world champions, but still they are becoming better, right? And I think that's a very interesting task or a challenge for AI systems, yeah.
mm. Okay, so in this, you mean to say where there is expertise, where it's like only one directional work, where this where the AI will do very well.
Yeah, that's what we are seeing right now, because
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Okay, okay, got it. So, you said that the AI is not good with simpler tasks like if there is an object, then you have to take a right or give way.
Yeah.
So, what are the consequences in the real life that have occurred in the past or they have occurred in the recent times, which are implying in that direction where AI is not competent in that particular field. Now, I'll give you an example. Before we had discussed that that we'll be recording the episode on this day. I was just going through a little bit of what is happening around the world about this stuff, and one incident that you suggested me was that the Tesla case, which they can you pull up Tesla case, and if I'm correct, it killed a person in that on the road, and there's I haven't read the case in detail. When given the just when asked for the justification, it was the Justification was that if Tesla hadn't gone that way, it would have led to the death of uh, the driver of that car and the other car as well. So killing one person in that accident was better than killing two in the same accident.
It is not exactly that AI systems are bad at deciding whether given an obstacle we should take left or right. But still, what I mean to say is that the human level performance, right?
Hmm.
The intuitiveness that humans have, that without even thinking much, we are really good at doing this kind of stuff. AI systems are not on par with that performance, right? Coming back to a Tesla case, I think in last couple of years, Tesla Autopilot has had a few crashes. Uh, the this particular dilemma, right? What we're talking about. This is also called as the just search for train dilemma or something like that. Trolley dilemma. Um
There, can you pull up trolley dilemma?
So basically, what trolley train problem suggests that there are many variations of this, but primarily it is something like this. Let's
Hmm.
say there is a train coming from on the railway track, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
you are the railway track operator who can decide
Hmm.
whether train should go straight or it should take a left turn.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
let's assume that if the train goes straight,
Hmm.
then there are five young men. Okay,
Hmm.
for example, there are five young children in front of the, or
Hmm.
five old people in front of the train. And if the
Hmm.
train takes a turn, then there is a one young child.
Hmm.
So what would you do? Would you let the five old elderly people die, or would you let the young child die? So what will you do? Right.
Hmm.
Uh, and to be honest, it's a very difficult question for any human to answer, right? It's a
Hmm.
very difficult problem, uh, let alone AI systems. So if there's a human driver, that human driver might take a decision to at that moment it is very difficult to decide what should a human driver do, but the human driver will make a decision, right? The question is, can we be sure that the AI systems will make the right decision, whether the AI system will decide to take a turn and crash into, let's say, the side walls, and let the person who's driving the car die, who was sitting inside the car die, or would it let the car crash into the person who was in front of you and let the pedestrian die? So these are very difficult questions for any AI system to answer, right? Uh, but I would say this, like even Tesla and other and the newer companies who are working in autonomous driving, they must be definitely trying to tackle this problem. It's a
Hmm.
very important problem to be answered, to be tackled. And fundamentally, I am little, though I'm an AI enthusiast, I still think that even considering Tesla Autopilot or any Waymo or even these companies, it is very important that, yeah, autopilot will definitely help us reduce the number of crashes that are on the
Hmm.
streets. There's no doubt in that um, that driving is a very systematic task, definitely, right? You have a
Hmm.
street light, only then you have to cross it. When there's a red light, you have to stop there. When there's a pedestrian, you have to stop there. Driving is a very systematic task, but because of human negligence and our incapability, there are a high number of crashes, and autopilots will definitely improve it. But still, what I
Hmm.
believe is that what we need here is more of a human AI collaboration inside a
Hmm.
car rather than just an AI driving. So
Hmm.
at times it is really important for the AI, for the humans to keep on giving an input to the AI system, keep on interacting, keep an eye on the road to make a decision along with the AI
Hmm.
system, right? What do you think?
I think this kind of dilemma has been there for a long time, and people haven't found an answer to it. Now,
Yeah,
the thing is, when I was talking to one of the philosophy students or art students, uh, the first question that they usually ask is about moral dilemma. That let's take an example. There is a crisis, and there is a family. Okay, the family has like a one father, mother, and two kids, or one kid, whatever. Take an best example possible. Now, since
right.
it's a crisis situation, would it be justified for the man to go out and steal food and then provide for his family? Because that is unethical, just stealing from some XYZ grocery store, or not steal and let the family die, which is again a dilemma. Ki if I don't feed them, they will die. So these are some
Right.
things that people haven't been able to find an answer to it. I mean, the
Right.
more we dig into it, the more complicated it gets. Although it looks simple, the situation looks simple, but it's more instinctive as well. And I think if somebody is off the philosophy that it is the survival of the fittest, we have to do whatever we have to do and all that, the most Darwinian, philosophy, then obviously the answer would be, okay, it is better to steal and feed the family. So that
Right.
is something that has to be dug deep. Now,
Yeah.
uh, Bhavin, since people have been working on this AI for quite some time, the usual dilemma, not it's not a dilemma, I would say, the apprehension about this is always that if AI and this machine learning comes into picture, or it starts integrating with other fields of work, people will start losing jobs. And the basic, it's a very common problem that people ask, but I have never felt that. I mean, I have not, sorry, not felt, I have never thought it to be uh, a place where it would let people, make people unemployed. Okay, I've always
Right.
thought that something to be, it will ease up the work of someone who has the competence to be good at what they are doing.
Right.
Like I'll give an example of law. Now, let's take an example of rent agreement. Okay, you are in Mumbai, you have you meet a landlord, says, okay, you have XYZ terms and conditions are met and etc. So what is the same thing you do? You go to a lawyer to make that agreement, okay, about that rent agreement. Now, if you look at the format of that rent agreement, the terms and conditions of the rent agreement, they are usually the same,
Right.
unless the landlord wants, okay, एक specific term डाल दे, and these has to
Yeah.
be met. तो जो lawyer हो गए, जो niche वाले, who deals with rent agreement problems, those will be the ones who will be unemployed, will be eliminated completely from uh,
Right.
this problem. So that is my understanding. But from coming from you, what would be your understanding about such a problem which people are making this, क्या बोलते हैं, apprehension कि अच्छा मेरी job चली जाएगी या जो भी है.
Okay. Like in that domain, I think first of all, it's true that AI systems, if implemented, will can do the job of a, let's say, 10 people job a single system can do, right?
Correct.
And I'm understating when I'm saying 10. We can say like 1,000 people job can be done by an AI system, right?
Hmm.
What I think is that, and many other people talk about this, is that we'll be then moving into expert jobs, right? The people who are more into laborious jobs, which are easily replaced by AI systems or automated systems. Um, these people will move on to expert jobs. They will find a job in which their expertise or um, their niche cannot be replaced by an AI system, and they will keep on moving to such domains. But for example, consider the Tesla Gigafactory, right? Tesla
Hmm.
Gigafactory is fully automated. Like, no,
Oh.
there are workers, there are employees, but for the most part, I think AI Tesla Gigafactory is fully automated. I think we should
Hmm.
check that out. Is
Yeah, yeah.
Tesla?
Can you pull up Tesla Gigafactory? This is the factory. Oh my God.
Yeah, suppose this is a Tesla Gigafactory,
Like,
right? Interestingly, there is one Tesla Gigafactory even in Buffalo, right where I am. I think Gigafactory 2.
okay, so how many gigafactories are there in total? Three or more?
Uh, I think more, because there's one in China also, and
Okay.
one in Europe, maybe Germany or somewhere. Yeah, so there are multiple. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Tesla is expanding like crazy, right? Yeah.
Gotcha.
So, uh, what I was saying was, what I think is the transition is a more important factor we should care about than worrying about will AI system replace us or not, because automated systems will replace us one day or another. That is for
Mm-hmm.
sure, right? Think about any job which was 50 years ago totally manual. now think about it, like handlooms, for example, right?
Hmm.
40 years ago in India, almost all the villages, let's say Burhanpur and other villages in India, right? We had handlooms. We had hundreds of people just operating those handlooms to create that fine quality of cloth, right? Now, in textile factories, the number of workers who are working is going to reduce, right? Because the systems are better, they are automated. You have more digitalized sewing machines and everything, right? So systems are getting automated. What I think is that transition matters a lot. How these systems are adopted into the workforce, into organizations, what kind of time period is given to the people, what kind of
Hmm.
are new jobs or other jobs openings available. These are the more important things that matter than worrying about will AI system replace or not, because it is going to replace. Better automated systems are going to replace people.
Hmm.
But
So
question is, yeah,
what do you mean when you say transition? I mean,
transition is what I mean by transition is that you can't basically bring in an automated system today and ask your 50% of your employees to go just to leave the company, right? Because this
okay.
system can do the job of 50 people. What
Hmm.
for 50%? What you need is what it's my personal opinion that you need a transition time. You need to slowly adopt in things, and that's a decision, not because of efficiency or any other thing, but it's more of a human decision that we are trying to make to help
Hmm.
others, to take care of the community, right?
Okay.
To
Hmm.
see if the community has found another gateway to another earning source, right? If the community has found that earning source, we can start moving in the newer system, the automated systems, right?
Hmm.
So
Okay.
that transition is, I think, very important.
Hmm. Bhavin, obviously you are in USA, so I think it is much more ahead in this case than other countries. I don't know about how long will other countries take to adopt this completely. But one thing I would like to point out is, let's take an example of New York, okay, which is like the fastest moving city in the world and everything. अभी वहां पे if you say कि the transition is applicable, that is fine, but for people who will be laid off in that period, even in that transition, what kind of jobs should that person do, or what kind of jobs even the people where let's take example India काफी पीछे है ये चीज में, okay,
Right,
एंड तो अगर 50 साल अभी समझ लो मैं हूँ राइट, या कोई और है अभी 18 साल का लड़का है, बच्ची है, लड़का है, लड़की है,
right,
30 years down the line, 40 years down the line, one day they are told that there is a transition coming and you'll
right,
have to be laid off. So what kind of jobs should people start picking up, or should get in, should have a foresight for, to be able to adopt to this transition?
right. So in that domain, I think people should always ask themselves a question that what I do, is it my expertise or is it something I do just to get money, right? If that domain is my expertise, then if it's your expertise, it is very difficult for even an automated system to replace you, right? But if it's a job that you do just to make money, it is easier for a system to, it is very easy to be automated, right? So you should always ask yourself question that is what I'm doing, is it automatable, can it be automated, right? Can it be easily automated, can I be easily replaced, let's say not by AI but by another employee, can I by another human, can I be replaced? And second of all, whatever I'm doing, am I expert in that or not? So
Hmm.
a good example of this could be, consider the Amazon Go. You know about Amazon Go, right? So what Amazon Go is, it's a store. It's a grocery store kind of a store, but it's fully automated, right? You go there, you don't even have to go to the cashier. You can just pick up the object. It will the cameras and everything, all the information. It will track that you have picked up this object. You will put it in basket. It will automatically put it in your cart. Once you go out of the room, it will, based on face recognition and other kinds of tools that they are using, they will basically cash you out, right? They will
Hmm.
uh, you will pay for the whatever you bought. So to run such a automated store today, you might need more people because there's a lot of technology involved, maintenance and everything. But in future, you would just need one employee, right? Just a security guard maybe, and
Hmm.
nothing else, right? So you have taken away a job of maybe 5 or 10 something, some kind number of employees who work in a big grocery store,
Hmm.
because it's
Hmm.
automated grocery store, right? But there's a
Hmm.
question that we should ask ourselves: is what I'm doing, uh, is it a permanent job that I am
Hmm.
going to do throughout my life, or is it just a job that I'm doing just to make money, but soon I'm going to, but like side by side I'm working on a domain that is going to
Hmm.
be, is my expert domain, is in which I'm going to be really good, I'm going to be really expert, it is not easily automated, it cannot be easily automated, and then it's a good choice. That's what I think.
Hmm.
Like, people always
Hmm.
find a domain in which their job cannot be automated.
Right. But when you say that if it is your expertise or not, right? Not everyone can be expert, right? Let's take even our example, right? We are doing podcasting. I'm doing podcasting. You're doing research. At
Right,
what point can you say that you're an expert in your own field?
right,
Because it is always said that is like a people who want to learn, they will always say that the more I know, the more I know
yeah,
that I don't know.
right,
Right. So to even to solve that problem that मेरे expertise क्या है is kind of really tricky, and not everyone will be expert as well, because if everybody is expert then nobody is an expert.
yeah, right, agree.
I think people were head towards the more creative part where
Hmm.
creativity is, as it's said, it's a very subjective thing. What I find
Right,
beautiful you might not find beautiful, and what you might find beautiful I don't find beautiful. It's a very simple example. So people will
absolutely,
tend to move towards more creative parts, and once they have developed a system of how their creativity is produced, right?
right,
Then that is where again AI will be put so that the person can dedicate more time for their creative pursuits. Like,
right,
I'll give an example to to just enhance this. uh, Over here, the how podcasting starts. Okay, I send a cold mail to a guest who I want to invite. Okay, and the mail I've already created a format कि ये लिख रहा है. Okay, so that can be automated completely, and there are prototype responses which I
yeah,
can generate, because every guest, when now it's with experience I can say, whenever you send a cold mail to the guest, there is always क्या बोलते हैं, a prototype
Pre-
reply that comes कि अच्छा who are you, so okay next week क्या करना
right,
है. So that
right,
entire process can be given away,
yeah,
and the
absolutely,
only thing then left for me to do would be to talk to the guest and to record the episode. Again, the
right,
editing part, which takes a little bit of time, and uploading and everything. So
right,
that is where I can dedicate more time to consuming more
yes,
content, so I can decide the topics also with the guest. That is where
right,
the creativity part also would be very good pursuit for people.
absolutely, no doubt.
Bhavin, but we have talked a lot about data, and how predictability and identifying the images and everything. We as humans are a complicated beings,
Right,
emotionally intelligent. Everything is different for different people.
right,
um just to have impose a certain predictability or a stereotype of XYZ, just because the data says it on one person, wouldn't be justified, right? That is one problem, that this a drawback that this AI will face. Now, to again
right,
give you an example, I'll give you my own personal example, okay? Because
right,
that is something I relate to very well.
right,
So AIs are good, are, you said, can be used for prediction of results as well. Now,
right,
if you would take my example, and
right,
the what do you say, the purpose of that experiment would be how many students from school, okay,
right,
would go to a world class university or Ivy League or Russell Group. Okay, let's take that the experiment.
right,
And if you were to fill in my data, okay, I
right,
wouldn't be even in the top percentile to to be as a that I would reach that university. Okay. Now, but today it is the day when I have an offer letter from
right,
Russell Group University. And for people who don't know what it is, like USA has Ivy League, right?
right,
Eight universities, world top best, everything. In
Right.
UK these are called Russell Group universities, Oxford,
Okay.
Cambridge, London School of Economics वैसा. So where I
Oh,
will be
nice.
going for my masters in LLM, that is a world class university. So
Right.
I wasn't the top, the scholar type 95 97 स्कोर करने वाला बंदा. तो ये तो
Right.
प्रोसेस पूरा कॉन्ट्रडिक्ट हो गया ना. You get what
Yeah.
I'm
And
saying?
yeah, I get your
So,
point.
ऐसे problems में where exceptions exist, and it's not only me, who is an
Yeah.
exception to this process. There will be many people also. They must
Right.
have not been good at school or academics or etc etc, but they went on
Yeah.
to do very well. So ये जो challenge है उसको
Right.
कैसे solve कर सकते हैं?
Right. So first of all, congratulations on your admit. Like this is
Thank
a
you.
great. Yeah. So what I think is like the question that you're asking is, I think, about bias in these models,
Hmm.
right? Bias
Hmm.
in machine learning models, and um, in terms of bias in machine learning model, yes, the point that you're talking about, that there is already a human bias in the data that we feed in. Then the
Hmm.
AI system is prone to learning this human bias, right? And replicating this human bias in future predictions. And when
Hmm.
we use those future predictions to make real world decisions, we are again adding to that bias. So that's a never ending cycle. And and people have observed this before. So there was this very, I talked to you about this last time, right? There is this famous case of recidivism, right? So
Receive what?
recidivism, it's basically, should a person who went to jail, should he be released or not? Would he commit a crime again or not? So basically that's
Hmm.
the dilemma, that asking whether a person who is currently
It-
convicted for a
So
crime
is this a
will recon.
is this a name of the concept that you're talking about? We can look it
uh,
up.
yeah, it's a legal concept, I think.
Acha, Dev, can you pull up?
Yeah.
I haven't heard of it. I'm hearing for the first time. But I get
Yeah,
what you're trying to say.
right. So recidivism is the tendency of a convicted criminal to reoffend, right?
This is the site you're talking about.
Yeah, so this
Hmm.
ProPublica, this was a really famous article. It's talked about in, whenever you talk about bias in machine learning, I think this article comes up. So the point here was that AI system, there was a very famous AI software that legal institutions use to decide whether a criminal will reoffend or not, right? And
Hmm.
the name of the software is mentioned somewhere here. Basically, this software, based on your past data, your historical data, it was given a large amount of data of people who have previously committed a crime and what they did after coming out, their racial information, their gender, their age, and all their family information, all those kinds of information. And
Hmm.
given a new person, and the AI system decides the probability that this person will reoffend or not. And it was observed by this group of people, this group of journalists, is that what they found was that this system is very much biased towards Afro-Americans, right? And
Biased towards or biased against?
biased against. So
Oh.
like so if you see, basically,
Yeah, understand. So you mean to say ki
yeah,
if the data of a African person is put, then his predictability will be okay, he will again commit a crime. But if it is put for an American, it will be that he won't commit a
wait a
crime.
minute.
Okay.
Yeah, so basically there were multiple examples showing that for a white American, even though his historical data and for a particular white American in this example, he's given historical data and other information, the AI system gave it a low score for that he might reoffend, but
Hmm.
similarly given for a black American, it gave a high score. But in reality, it was found that by the people, that the black American was or the Afro-American was uh, less prone to reoffend, right? And the reason this system was biased was because it was trained on large amount of data which was previously biased. The data itself had this human bias, had this imbalance of conviction, right? Yeah.
Hmm.
And this led to bias in the system, which then the system was again used by the courts to make a decision, which
Hmm.
again led to that bias. And this again, this became a never-ending cycle, right? This became
Hmm.
problem. And now I think it is a that every AI company or every company which is trying to build any machine learning or deep learning based software or any data driven software, they try to evaluate the system for bias. So how they evaluate for bias is that they create subsets of questions, they create small clusters, and they ask questions in those clusters to evaluate whether the system is biased or not. And it is a very manual, very human way. There's a very human way to do it, and then there are some automated ways to also do it. But it is really important that we make sure that our systems are not biased against one gender, one age, or one any other sensitive attribute. So even the new this very recent case of Google Lambda, right? So the employee who released that information, mm, even his job at Google was to evaluate if that new Lambda system was biased or not. And while checking biased, he found other information that he realized that this might be sentient and all those things. But yes, yeah, bias in machine learning is really important, and to evaluate that is it's a very manual approach, right? You will have to understand whether uh, first of all, you have to understand whether the system is giving an imbalanced, in proportionate number of outcomes to one particular sensitive attribute or not. And if it is, then you will have to evaluate in what cases, in what particular situations it is giving this incorrect or biased output. Yeah.
Right. So it will certainly need a human intervention at some point in time.
Because this bias is defined by humans, right? Yeah.
Right. So can this not be put in a way? Okay, I'll give you an example. Okay, because I'm better at explaining by giving an example.
Right.
Now let's take an example of a factory. Okay, factory.
Right.
A factory is producing X product. Now while produce so out कैसा होता है 100 का input है. Okay, and process ये वो करते 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 the end product comes to let's say 92 or 93. Okay.
Right.
तो and which
Right.
is like inevitable. वो बाकी जो process में loss है, it's called normal loss in business terms. तो can it be implemented in a way, I mean while calculating the cost वो हम लोग को incorporate कर देते हैं. So वैसा
Right.
ही अगर अभी समझ लो ये जो artificial intelligence होगा which will be predicting if the person will commit or not. Can't we not say कि 5% of the result are wrong, so we can put that person in 5% category, like अंदर ही inbuilt.
Right. Yeah. So there are many approaches to tackle this bias problem. First approach is from the data perspective itself, that the data that you try to give to the model should be unbiased. And a lot of energy that people have been trying to put in is in this domain of cleaning the data, making sure that the data is unbiased. And then the other approach is to look at the predictions, right? Are the predictions that the network is making, are they biased, right? But yes, you're right that this one way is that you can create these buckets and you can make sure that based on some uncertainty level, that how confident your network is, you can decide whether you want to take that decision into consideration or not. So yeah, that's one way to definitely think about it.
Okay, so it's not been worked upon, but it's certainly something that people are working on.
Yeah, definitely. People are
Mm-hmm.
find best possible ways to handle bias in machine learning systems, and it is now ethically, legally, and all in all those respects, is becoming really important for all companies to take this into consideration.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, Bhavin, I am a lawyer, and I wanted to know how AI can be used in the legal field. As much of if it as much as it is possible for you to explain. Reason being that I'll give you an example again. Back in 2020, I was doing an internship, okay, at Bombay High Court. And
Right.
while doing the internship, I was talking to Kaira, okay, yeah, there is a lot of still paperwork here. It's really boring. We have sometimes you have to carry, we still have to go to court physically. It's like too much manual work, okay. And
Right.
sometimes it is not even fruitful. Why? Because adjournment ले लिया, मतलब क्या लिया, सिर्फ दूसरा डेट लेने के लिए मैं कोर्ट तक गया. Get
Right.
what I'm saying? And sometimes the matters are such that it is in one courtroom, then you have to run to other city civil, then you have to run to sessions court. It's very,
Right.
it's too much of hard work and too much of pressure situation. I mean, it really took for the legal fraternity to understand so late. For it took a pandemic for the legal fraternity to understand कि भाई virtually भी hearing हो सकता है, right? Which is
Right.
so common sense. like
Right.
उसके लिए PhD नहीं चाहिए ये जानने के लिए, right? तो
Right.
in such a situation, where else can artificial intelligence come into picture? कि अगर ये यहाँ पे डाल दे लीगल फ्रेटर्निटी में, तो it will be very much, it will ease up the work of a lawyer, and
Mm.
lawyers won't have to slog so much as much, as they're slogging right now. But if you don't
Right.
have a situation, you can ask me a question. If I have an answer, so then we can,
Yeah. Yeah. We can
form
quantify
something.
about it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. You're right. Um, I think not. I won't. So one use case that I have in mind, but it might not exactly be lying in the legal, but
Hmm.
in this whole use case of the jurisdiction, right? Jurisdiction. So you have to make sure that the victim or the offender or any witness who is involved, is he speaking a truth or not? Is he lying or not? Right? And to do that, usually people use a lot of facial cues, right? So
Hmm.
like smaller, very fine-grained facial expressions. And there's been a lot of research going on in this domain of facial action unit detection, right? So facial action unit detection is basically detecting these fine-grained motions in your smaller muscles,
Hmm.
these muscles in your face. These muscles are around your nose, your eyes, your face, your lips. So when you speak, you tend to make some kind of very very subtle um,
Tells.
expressions,
Hmm.
right, which are very difficult to perceive, but people who are expert in that are able to perceive. And people have been trying to train facial recognition models who can detect these action units. I think I don't know if that has been tried to evaluate if a person is lying or not, but that's a very interesting use case, right? Because
Hmm.
what I feel is that in the legal profession, uh, it is very difficult to tell if a person is lying. If a eyewitness is actually paid eyewitness or is a real eyewitness, or right, it's very difficult to evaluate. But if you
Uh,
could if you could on the fly get a uh, get a get a score that this person might be lying 20%, like there's a confidence score, I'm 20% sure that this person is lying. So
hmm.
you will have a little bit of more extra information to go with, right? That's the use case that I think about. But what do you think? Do you have anything particular in mind, or you have been working on something and you find that okay, this thing can be improved with AI?
Yeah, so just like I said, ये जो running from one code to second code वाला जो scenario था, that was I hated it, completely hated it. Like
Right.
I don't want to just run for some time, and उसके लिए virtual hearing तो replace हो गया. That is a
Right.
good thing. I mean, pandemic, I know it took a pandemic, but ठीक है, वो हो गया at the end of the day. But again, people are resuming to physical codes only. Now I don't know why
Right.
they are doing this. Now other
Right.
use would be, let me think for a while. Yeah, I got one.
Yeah.
So see, India has a complex legal system. Okay, बहुत छोटे छोटे
Right.
चीजों के rules हैं. I'll give you an
Right.
example. There is this one law that says that
Mhm.
if traffic police, okay, takes you on the side and he tells you कि PUC दिखाओ, license दिखाओ, ये दिखाओ, वो दिखाओ. So it says
Right.
that the traffic police guy cannot ask you to show your PUC. Okay.
Hmm. Right.
And another बात ये है कि there is something else related to those lines only. But yeah, PUC
Right.
मत दिखाओ. Now,
Okay.
as a common man, okay, and even if you are not a lawyer, let's leave that
Yeah.
aside.
Right.
अगर कोई वो पुलिस वाला है, right, not even
Right.
out of fear, okay, not even out
Yeah.
of fear, just as a क्या बोलते हैं,
Courtesy,
जिसको,
respect.
हाँ, कर्टसी, उसने बोला दिखा पीयूसी लाइसेंस और इंश्योरेंस दिखा, तो दिखा देना, उसमें प्रॉब्लम क्या है? रीजन भी,
Exactly.
और अगर तो डिसएग्री किया कि अरे आई नो दिस लॉ, यू कैन नॉट आस्क मी टू पीयूसी, आस्क शो मी योर पीयूसी, तो दैट विल लीड टू नाउ इवन एक्सटेंडेड आर्गुमेंट्स. ओके, सो
Absolutely
आई
right.
थिंक आई वुड वांट समथिंग that says ki which laws are really important to know. Okay, let's drink and drive, it is like a common sense, but it's a huge law, वो मत करो. But अगर PUC वाला है तो काफी क्या बोलते हैं, petty issue है वो. So
हाँ
certain some segregation which would say कि these, although these laws exist, it's a petty law, and real life में इसको कोई follow नहीं करता है, let's just leave that. Okay, and these are like a major laws, तो इसको फॉलो करो. एंड इफ ये चीजों में अगर तुम्हें कुछ डिस्प्यूट कर रहा है, ओके,
right
पुलिस वाला है, कोई भी है, देन इट इज ओके फॉर यू टू रेज योर वॉइस. अनदर एग्जांपल वुड बी, there is this law that says you cannot arrest a woman after 6 p.m. It's a real law, it's a big law, right? ये important है, right? अभी इसमें
okay
तू आर्ग्यू नहीं कर सकता कि अरे 6 हो गया, 5:59 हो गया,
yeah
ऑल दैट इसमें है तो है. तो
right
दैट इज इम्पोर्टेंट. वही अगर ऐसा है कुछ है कि what's something, any other petty law would be. Yeah, but you get the
I
point what
get
I'm
it, like
raising. This is the
get
first petty law that came to my mind. So there are
right
many laws which are petty, which people don't even think are relevant, right? Even
right
if I come to America, which I've never visited, और अगर मेरे
right
को कोई पूछे कि भाई गाड़ी रोक करके, तो मैं रोक देगा ना, पुलिस वाला बोलेगा तो. I'm not going to
absolutely
argue with him. So these are
absolutely correct
something that that can be put कि अच्छा ये सब laws डालो, इसको process करो, real life
Hmm.
scenarios में इसको थोड़ा वो क्या बोलते हैं, human touch के etc incorporate it and see which are relevant, which are petty करके वैसा. That would be something interesting because there are many laws. I mean, too many
right
laws to find out. And another thing would be um,
coming back to like the point of deciding ki which laws are like the most priority, most important
hmm,
laws, right? You must follow them. And then there is another layer of uh, it's like you
yeah.
follow them, you don't follow them. It's okay. It's like it's not a crime, or it's okay. Like it's your decision, right? So I think maybe based on number of citations that a particular law get historically in a courtroom, you can just accumulate that information, get a count, and based on that count you can decide which laws are really
Uh,
important, which are not very important, right? Yeah,
yeah.
something
That's
like
a
that.
great way to predict if it is not relevant, important, and not important. That's a great way to do it. But yeah,
Right,
so this is something that and it's something that I want to. Other part, if I had to think again, I'll need some time to think. But again, even India as a legal fraternity is like way, I would
yeah,
say 40, 50 years behind, in terms of technology. So that's a
right,
very sad situation. भागना पड़ता है. हाँ, people, obviously there will be arguments against this as well. कि why we need to go to the court, why we need to do this, why we need to do that. But again,
right,
where if you know that these things are going to go obsolete in a few years time, then there's no point in doing it more and more again.
right.
Yeah.
Like in this just in this bigger circle, right? Because just a courtroom or just a legal profession is it's very difficult to find where AI systems might be used. But uh, in this bigger use case of application of rules, applications of laws, right? Biometrics, I think biometrics plays an important role, right? For example, fingerprint recognition or spoof detection, that whether the fingerprint which was presented, was it a spoof or was it a real finger, right? So these applications have a lot of these applications make a lot of use of machine learning and computer vision. Absolutely, that is true.
Hmm.
I think media forensics or evidence forensics could be a use case where AI could be used, right? So if an evidence is presented to the
Hmm.
courtroom, can we create a framework of AI systems, like many AI systems that could decide together that this evidence which was presented, let's say the evidence was a videotape, let's say the evidence was an image, let's say the evidence was a document signed by a person. Can we decide if this evidence was forged, was it a forgery, or was it a real evidence, right?
Hmm.
So was it made up or is it real? So that could be an interesting use case for AI.
Hmm. Makes sense. Yeah. Right. So yeah, and we're moving to the last part of this conversation.
Right.
Recently, not recently, I mean last year somewhere in some month, I don't remember. But uh, you are aware of this robot called Sophia, which is in
Yeah.
Saudi Arabia robot that.
I heard about it.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so it is something that was told that it had been, like certain human emotions had been inculcated, and it had come very much alive. तो ऐसा कुछ
Right.
हुआ है कभी where the system has come alive or it has gone like out of control, like जो as जैसे movies में बताते हैं कि one day the robots will take over the entire human race, and
Yeah.
humans will annihilate to the ground. So is obviously it is for the movies, but even hypothetically speaking ऐसा कुछ scenario आ सकता है क्या?
Yeah. Uh, so first of all, this
Assuming the
news.
system has been assuming that the system has been made more intelligent than humans.
Right. So these news about AI systems to become conscious, AI systems to become alive, AI systems to get emotions or become aware about their existence, right? These kind of news have been coming into picture from last, I think, 10 years. Sophia, and then we had news about Facebook having created two chatbots who started communicating with each other and invented their own language or something like that. Then we had this news in recent news about Google Lambda, that Google Lambda chatbot has become sentient, right?
Hmm.
Uh, so to what degree these systems have become conscious, to what degree they can be considered alive, they can be considered intelligent, that's a very subjective question to answer, because to be able to answer that, we will have to first answer the question of what is consciousness, what is alive, right? When do we consider something to be, okay, this thing is actually alive, it is aware about its existence, it is equivalent to a human being, right? Not maybe not in the carnal form, not in maybe in the physiological form, but at least it's in it's in its brain, right? But talking about the doomsday, basically, can AI take over mankind? I think i think it's my personal opinion that we have to be really really cautious about it. I
Hmm.
won't say that AI will take over AI will take over mankind, but I think if we are not cautious, then it can do much more damage than we
Hmm.
can handle. Yeah, right.
Hmm.
And even Elon Musk has said it publicly that that AI systems might take over mankind at some day, something like that, something related to it. Elon Musk had
Hmm.
said in the past, and even I think that because the pace at which we are going, uh, it's really good. It's really good. But we have to. But this is the right time that we start making the decision about how we are going to prevent something from mishappen, something wrong to happen. Right? We have to do research in improving these AI systems. We have to create better systems that learn on themselves and that improve human lives. But we'll have to start thinking about this question now itself, that how are we going to handle these questions, how are we going to handle these systems, how are we going to put a constraint, put a leash on these systems, right? If something
Hmm.
goes wrong, uh, because usually we start thinking about these points only when something wrong happens, right?
Right.
But the pace at which we are going, I think we should start thinking about it way before
Hmm.
it
Hmm.
actually
Hmm.
happens.
So obviously now just a little tiny part to ask: can
Mm.
conscience or human emotion be inculcated or programmed into the system? Is it possible कि अच्छा sadness डाल दिया या crying डाल दिया, happiness डाल दिया? In some way, if I don't know, I am not a programmer, so I'm asking you.
So okay, so then there are two things, right? The first thing is hard coding. Hard coding is you write the set of rules, right? You write the
Hmm.
set of rules. For example, if I pinch you, you should shout. If I tell you a joke, you should laugh. But that
Hmm.
doesn't mean, right, that the system is aware about emotions, right? It is just a
Hmm.
set of rules. You can consider it to be a person who is a psychopath, let's say a person who cannot understand human emotions. Even to that person, you can tell them rules, right? That if I pinch you, you have to shout.
Hmm.
Even if you don't feel an emotion of shouting, you have to shout. You have to feel sad, right? If I slap you, you should feel sad. So, but that doesn't mean that those are emotions. The second part, apart from hard coding, the other thing is that the system learns on its learns by itself, learns by
Acha.
either interacting with the environment or learns by looking at large amount of historical data. But the system learns to learns to extract these patterns by itself.
Hmm.
And that is where the dilemma comes into picture. We as humans are not born, I would say, with a lot of things that we learn in this period of 20-30 years when we are growing up, right?
Hmm.
And that for AI systems also, you might not hard code it to do something, but given the data, it can learn these emotions. So think about language models, right? So we have natural language processing models like
Hmm.
GPT-3, GPT-2, BERT, and the recent model from Facebook, it's called OPT. So
Hmm.
these models have humongous amounts of parameters, like around 60 billion parameters, 160 billion parameters. So uh, by parameters, I mean neurons. Okay. So
Hmm.
just like our brain has a neuron, right? So these neural networks also have neurons, and like in basic sense, these are the learnable parameters. These are the
Oh.
parameters that the network can fine tune to
Hmm.
learn from the data. And what is the data that has been given to these systems? Almost every written word that has been that has been stored in a computer, it has been tried to give it as a information to learn for the systems, right? It is from Bible to Bhagavad Gita to all the books that there exist. You give all that
Hmm.
information to these systems, and what you ask, what the eventual task for the system is, you are given a set of words and it is asked to predict the next word. So for example, uh, consider any article on a website, right? For example, I
Hmm.
opened this website and it is saying in Arizona, Colorado, Delaware, Kentucky, and let's say I ask it to predict the next word. And let's say the network predicted Wisconsin, or let's say the network predicted Louisiana, and I will penalize it if it predicted the correct word. If it predicted the wrong word, I will I will not penalize if it predicts the correct word. If it predicts the incorrect word, I would penalize it, right?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
think about it this way. If I say you a sentence, I was talking on dash phone. So you know that the word is cell phone, right? Or mobile phone.
Hmm.
That fill in the blank. So
Correct.
this is called as masked language modeling, and this is a technique that almost all recent language models have been using to train train a network to understand natural language on a large scale. And inherently, when you train these models on such large amount of human written information, it tends to learn humanly forms, right? Humanly emotions, because you have written a lot of information about emotions and other things, right? um, but the question is, even if it learns these information, is it aware, or is it just a rule that it is just a rule that it has memorized, right? That's a very subjective question to answer.
Hmm. That's a really interesting way to, if that's
Yeah,
really going to leave everybody thinking, kya hoga? Again, Bhavin, I think it's time that you have to go, if I'm not wrong.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So again, thank you for doing this.